Shalom everyone and welcome back. We are doing verse 14 of Proverbs 31. It has been a very interesting study till now, and as you can see, yes, there's quite a bit of repetition in what the woman of valor is. It is to draw closer to Abba Father, to have that intimate relationship with Father. But as we saw with last week's verse, that even the preparing of the garments is not about making clothes. It is about developing the characteristics and having the discernment on which characteristic that situation needs. You know, do you need to be like linen or do you need to be like wool for that situation? And having that discernment can only come by frequenting your time with Abba Father. And we'll see that right through this Proverbs 31, that Echet Chayil is all about intimacy with Father. So let's delve into verse 14. Verse 14 is, she is like the merchants. She is like the merchants or trader ships. She brings her food from afar. So let's go and have a look what this merchant is. Let's look at what food means first before we look at what the merchants are. We know merchants are people who trade and who go from one area to another area to bring what this area has to an area that doesn't have that kind of things, and then they would maybe trade like we used to have the spice routes many years ago. So they would trade the spices from India and go and get tea or coffee or whatever it is. So they would trade like that, and that's exactly what a merchant is. So if we're going to have a look what food is, it's lechem. Now we all know that lechem is bread or grain for making bread. You can also see that here the Strong's the King James translates it 297 times. But 237 of the 297 times it's translated as bread, or then showbread or provision. So we get it. It's food. Okay. If we're going to have a look at the root of food, you'll see. So you got lechem, which is from the root of Hebrews 3:8-9:8, and the root of that is lacham. Now, lacham means to feed on, to consume, to overcome, to prevail. You'll see the King James has translated it 149 times as fight and 10 times to war. So you see, to receive food in the old days, you had to fight for it. You had to go and hunt. You had to go and kill. You had to work to get that food. It wasn't just something that comes easy. You have to overcome the prey. You have to prevail the hunting to get food. And so that is, it's working to get it, to feed onto something. So if we're going to have a look, the ships carry food and supplies for the people who board on the ship and the items they trade at the different harbours. So we need to have not only food for ourselves, but also for others. That's what it means to be like the merchants. Just like the merchant ships have to battle the raging seas, the pirates and storms to sell their merchandise, so we need to battle our own flesh and the physical and spiritual worlds to get spiritual food for ourselves and our families. So you see this, the comparison. So we got to be so careful of not just reading the passage as physical. You know, how can we be a merchant ship? The depth of it is so beautiful once you understand it. Now let's go and read in the Valor, a Messianic Journey through Proverbs 31, on page 50 and to 51. I'm just quoting directly. It says, if we picture the land and the sea as two different dimensions, the shore is where the two connect. The Hebrew word for the water's edge is safar. Interestingly, this is the same word that means lips. What does the edge or shore have in common with lips? How are the lips a place where the spiritual and physical dimensions connect? The rabbis teach that lips represent connection in three different ways. The first has to do with eating. When food passes through our lips, it provides life to our bodies, and life is the result of the body and the spirit being in connection. If we do not eat, we starve, and our spirit eventually separates from its physical vessel, the body. Secondly, our lips are instruments of speech, and speech is how we communicate. Without language, we would be like the animals, but by means of speech, we can connect to others, soul to soul. This is also how we connect with the Creator in prayer. As Sarah Evian states in her book, Beloved of the Soul, she quotes, prayer is the bridge that enables us to step outside our known selves to a reality beyond, end quote. Whether thought or spoken, words are a creative force. Finally, the lips are the way we kiss. Universally, human beings express affection and greeting to one another with its unique sign of love and friendship. The lips are a means of creating a very intimate physical connection with a loved one. Let's return to the woman of valor and picture her standing on the shoreline. As a merchant ship, she courageously ventures from the safety and familiarity of land to procure nourishment from afar. She launches her soul into the invisible realm of the spirit and connects with the divine, then returns with spiritual sustenance for herself and her household. But with what does she purchase the spiritual food? A merchant has something of value to give in exchange for needed commodities. In the case of the woman of valor, time is the currency she spends to acquire the spiritual nourishment she seeks. Likewise, we too must invest time to enter a distant foreign place of authentic and sacred connection with God. There is no other way to feed our souls and to gather the wisdom and strength necessary to function in this world. Prayer and meditation require not only time, but intentional concentration as well. By this means, the woman of valor brings spiritual sustenance back to her household. It is generally recognized that it is the woman who has the greater capacity to influence the family's love and awe of God. But to do that, the woman has to be in deep and authentic connection with herself and with Jehovah. Facing oneself and the Almighty is powerful, time-consuming, and spiritual work. Our woman of valor can move between land and sea, the physical and the spiritual, because she understands the importance of connection on various levels. The shore is Safa. She is sensitive to both the visible and invisible reality. She crosses the shoreline in both directions, operating with ease in both realms, living out her divine purpose as she gathers nourishment to feed herself and others. She knows how to provide both physical and spiritual bread to hungry people. Buy truth and do not sell it. Get wisdom and instruction and understanding, is what Proverbs 23:23 says. The word Hebrew means one who has crossed over. The transition from slavery to freedom is the ideal, intended life for the bride of Messiah. It requires diligence, courage, and time. It is not for the timid. It has been said, a ship in the harbour is safe, but that is not what ships were meant for. So the question is, are you in such a strong relationship with Father and so spiritually sensitive and mature that you can cross between the physical and the spiritual? There's a saying that I heard many years ago that some people are so spiritually minded that they know earthly good. And we've got to be careful that we don't become that as well. We've got to balance it so carefully. So one thing that we see is that the woman of valor is not a selfish person. She is someone who goes and spends time with Father. She goes and sacrifices her time to get food that will feed herself, to make her mature, to not be needy and draining from her husband and everyone around her, but that will be able to give to others, to give wisdom, to give comfort, to give love, to give protection. That is everything that a woman. So a woman is that the heartbeat of the house. So I want you to go use your prayer diary again this week and ponder on these questions. How well do you walk on the water's edge between the spiritual and physical world? How are you using your lips, your safa? Are you building up or are you breaking down? Are you connecting with people in an uplifting way? Like we mentioned last week in verse 13, are you a person that drains the emotions of everyone around you when you enter a room? Or do you leave the room that people feel encouraged, loved, uplifted? Are you connecting with Father with pure lips? And that is something that I think we all need to work on. No one is perfect in this. Yeshua even spoke about it. You know, we cannot serve Father with the same mouth that we curse people. And it is difficult when you're being persecuted or, you know, things are going wrong. And we are human and we do slip in the flesh. But this is something that you can purposefully work on, focus on. How nourishing is the food that you are receiving? Remember what we spoke about right in the beginning. Having a relationship with Father is not dependent on doing a little daily devotion and hearing what other people's perspective is of the Bible. It is you hearing from Father what His perspective is, what He wants to share with you, that life becomes rhema, becomes life for you. The Word needs to become life. It needs to become a revelation for you. And getting someone else's revelation isn't the same as you getting the revelation from Abba Father. How nourishing is the food you're providing to your family? You know, are you a shallow person? Or are you someone that people can turn to, that your children can turn to for wise counsel, for comfort, for, you know, that they know they can look at you? And we'll see later on, one of the verses, it is actually written from the perspective of a man declaring what his wife is. And how is your husband declaring you? It would be interesting to go and ask your husband, how does he see you? Where does he see, are you falling short on the fruit of the Spirit? This can be a very difficult one for some people. It depends on your spouse and how your relationship is. If you've got that mature type of relationship, it would be very nice to have, because we are supposed to be, you know, iron sharpens iron. That's how a couple is supposed to be. And you're supposed to be able to be authentic with one another and go, hey, hubby, where am I falling short? Where do you feel I need to focus more on? And you should be able to share with him without taking offense, without getting defensive, and be able to see yourself through your husband's eyes. Who is the closest person to you? Who is going to be able to give you the most authentic feedback that you'll be able to get? Because there's no pretenses. That is the one that you fart in front of. That's the one that you wake up with the smelly breath and look your worst at. You know, that is the person who knows your weaknesses and will be able to tell you where your weaknesses are. But it must be done in a safe environment, out of love and not out of criticism. And that is going to help you to grow. This is a beautiful quote from Mendel of Vorki, once described how one should pray. He says, kneel while standing up straight, scream without making a sound, dance without making a move. Have you ever met people, you know, who's so full of Abba Father, and you look at them and you can just, you see the way they walk, it's as if they're dancing. The way that they talk, it is with compassion and love. You can see their spirit life is so strong. I remember when I was a teenager in youth, there was this older lady. She was in her early 20s then, And I looked so much up to her because when she prayed, I could hear her prayer life was so strong. And you can hear by the way someone prays how strong their relationship with Father is. And so that is something I want you to also focus on this week, is stop praying for your issues, but ask Father who you need to pray for this week. Start focusing on others, because as you focus on others, it's as if Father starts answering your prayers, because you're not being as selfish. You're not focused on me, myself, and I. You're changing the focus to Father and to others. And that is a way of ministering to. You might not need to go and, give Bible passages, whatever, but make a point of it to say, Father, who do you want me to intercede for this week? Who do you want to give a message to through me this week? And really spend time waiting and listening on Father for that. And it might just be a passage of encouragement that you send to a friend or to one of the ladies in the group. Make this group as a group where we can grow and support one another, not just come in and receive and leave. Be a contributor. Be someone who's going to give as much as what you're taking. I look forward to doing our next verse with you next week. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all your time. And thank you for taking this journey along with me as we study Proverbs 31 and how to become the bride of Messiah. Shalom Aleichem.